I sold my car, the one thing that felt truly mine, to pay for her dreams. Then she vanished, hand in hand with her professor, while my empty driveway whispered the betrayal back at me. I never thought I'd sell my beloved car. It wasn't just a vehicle, it was my freedom, the wind against my face that washed away the weight of everyday life. But love is persuasive, isn't it? It whispers sweetly, cloaking even the heaviest sacrifice in illusion. The sound of the door closing at the dealership echoes still, a measured goodbye to self-indulgence. Karen's dreams sparkled brighter than our reality, a skyline she longed to touch through the windows of an art school. So, I funded it without pausing. Her gratitude seemed genuine, but I was blindsided, completely. The betrayal sliced through me, quick and merciless, when she opted for another, a professor. I think back to her eyes, seemingly innocent but deceptive, as she packed up the life I'd helped build. Maybe the signs were always there, blurred by hopeful naivety, convinced love could somehow vanquish truth. I stood in the parking lot, the early afternoon sun dull against the chrome of my car. My fingers drummed this strange rhythm of hesitation on the roof, like the farewell song of someone who didn't want to say goodbye. This car was more than just metal and wheels. It was my first real possession, the one thing that had been with me through thick and thin. Now, I had to let it go. The car's soft, worn leather and the faint scent of old cologne mixed with the sharp air of the dealership. I hated this place. Too sterile, too bright, suffused with exaggerated cheer. It felt at odds with how I felt inside, somewhere dark, muddled. With every step toward the office, doubt became a heavy chain that rattled behind me. I kept telling myself this was for Karen. Her face appeared in my mind's eye, that smile that could light up the darkest room. The promise she held out, that glimmer of a future. I clung to it like a lifeline, but part of me sensed it was beginning to slip through my fingers even as I tightened my grip. Inside, the process was almost mechanical. The salesperson, with a practiced, impersonal warmth, read through the paperwork, while my heart silently screamed. I found myself nodding at their words, although they might as well have been speaking a different language. The words "finalize the sale" had a leaden finality that sat like a stone in my chest. I penned my signature with the pen they offered, cheap, plastic, and disposable, just like my car would soon be to someone else. A part of me wanted to grab the keys and run, drive off to anywhere but here. I glanced at the cashier as she slid a check across the desk, her eyes avoiding mine, as if understanding the personal hurt in this transaction. "Thank you," she murmured, but her voice was distant, as if from a different world. I picked up the check, its edges sharp against my fingers. It was a lifeline and a declaration of loss all bound together in one solitary slip of paper. As the cashier handed over the check, a part of me felt hollowed out, like I'd bartered away a piece of my soul for her happiness. I clutched the check tighter as if by holding it close I could convince myself there was something gained here, something more noble. The harsh truth simmered beneath. A betrayal was already quietly unfurling, its tendrils creeping through the very nature of my sacrifice. Swallowing hard, I turned to leave, casting one final glance at my old companion, its reflective surface capturing the anguish etched across my features. My feet moved, heavy against the ground, pulling me away from what was and toward what I hoped could be. The foreboding lingered, whispering possibilities I wasn't ready to face. Not yet. The moment I step through the door, there is a thrilling chaos that greets me. Karen's small studio apartment is transformed into a whirlwind of colors and scattered papers that carpet the floor like confetti after a parade. Art supplies are everywhere. Tubes of paint, sketch pads with half-finished masterpieces, a laptop precariously balanced on top of a teetering stack of textbooks. It's a mess, but it's her mess, and it's perfect. The evening sun seeps through the sheer curtains, wrapping everything in a golden glow, and there she is, at the heart of it all. Her eyes catch the light as she looks up at me, and it's like stepping into a world where everything else fades, leaving only this moment. That sparkle, that uncontainable excitement, makes the tiredness from work dissolve into irrelevance. Her smile is immediate, disarming me not just with its warmth, but with an affection so genuine it tightens my chest. "You're home," she exclaims, her voice a melody of gratitude and relief. Like the very sight of me walking in the door completes her creation somehow. I barely have time to kick off my shoes before she's across the room, hugging me tightly. Her arms are paint-smeared, and soon, my own shirt bears the same vibrant marks of her passion. And yet, none of it matters. The stains are battle scars from a day she fought with hues and canvas, and won. Look, she gestures excitedly, pulling me into her whirlwind. There's a piece she's been working on, stretched out across the table, an abstract of vivid colors and bold strokes, fierce and alive. Her pride in herself, shines through every word as she explains her process. I nod, soaking in her enthusiasm as if it were my own. Seeing Karen's smile made every penny seem worth it, her joy unraveling my doubts like the morning sun dispels the mist. I remember the sacrifices, the long hours, the ignored warnings about financial strains, but watching her, they seem insignificant. Her happiness radiates, snapping into place gaps I didn't even know existed within me. It floods the room, a tide of reassurance convincing me we're on the right path. I let myself believe it's enough, that love is a currency that won't devalue. She reaches for my hand, lingering there, tracing the lines with a tenderness that mirrors the delicate care she applies to her art. "Thank you," she whispers, voice soft and all-encompassing. "You make this possible. I couldn't dream this big without you." Her words linger, wrapping around my heart like a vow. I let the comfort of her gratitude seep through the cracks of my own uncertainty. Devotion binds us in this cocoon of hopefulness, painting over any fissures with strokes of imagined invincibility. I pull her closer, feeling the steady rhythm of her heartbeat, attuned to mine, reassuring me that we're weaving something beautiful, something lasting, together. The moment swells, perfect in its fragility, unaware of what the horizon holds. The house was cloaked in the kind of silence that presses in on you. A silence that, at times like these, wasn't just the absence of sound, but a predator hiding in its own shadow. I moved through the dimly lit room, my eyes adjusting to the soft glow of a street lamp filtering through the curtains. My heart was still finding its normal rhythm after an evening of restless tosses and turns. It was then I noticed the pile of papers, an innocuous mountain on the edge of the dining table. Bills, receipts, and listless to-do lists, all converging in a corner we'd both ignored for too long. I reached out with idle curiosity, flipping through the neglected chaos with a mix of aimlessness and irritation. That's when my fingers brushed against the envelope. It was buried, as if it were hiding. No, as if someone had carefully hidden it there. The envelope had a whisper of intimacy about it, different from the rest, like something that wasn't meant to be seen by any other eyes. I paused, my breath catching as I read the carefully inked words over and over. Her name echoed off the paper. The handwriting was elegant, deliberate. As I slid the letter out, the delicate rustle of paper might as well have been a thunderclap. The words felt like acid on my fingertips, each sentence burning its way through the remnants of my trust. He called her his muse, his inspiration, the words wrapped in a nauseating mixture of admiration and longing. My vision blurred as I hurriedly swallowed down the bile rising in my throat. I could hear the whisper of my own ragged breathing, an unwelcome witness to the betrayal unfurling before me. My hands trembled slightly, betraying a vulnerability I wasn't ready to show even to myself. The gut-wrenching blow left me teetering between anger and disbelief, caught up in the sickening realizations spiraling through my mind. Fragmented images invaded my thoughts, her late nights at the library, phone calls that ended abruptly when I walked in, laughter shared with a stranger's voice over cracked speakerphone. All the small things I had brushed off as harmless suddenly blazed in this new, brutal light. Each word of that letter was a thread, carefully and strategically loosening the invisible ties binding us together. A twisted confession snaked its way between the lines. His intent was unashamedly explicit, every promise of passion and love dripping with deceit. The quietness of the house returned, more sophisticated, filled now with the tension of secrets unmasked. I stood there rooted to the floor, holding the damning piece of paper, feeling the first real fracture cut deeply into the trust that once felt so unshakable. It was no longer just late night, but the dawn of something inevitable, an unraveling that couldn't be ignored. The note lay on the kitchen table, an elephant in the room neither of us could ignore. I stood there, arms folded, trying to force confidence into my words as I confronted Karen. "What is this?" She glanced at it, then looked back at me with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, that." She waved her hand, as if dismissing a bad smell. "It's nothing. Nothing." Her word hung in the air, mocking me. I reached for patience, but my voice wavered. "It sure doesn't look like nothing." Karen picked up the note, her fingers trembling for just an instant. Slowly, casually, she folded it, her eyes never leaving mine. "Just something silly from work. I forgot to toss it." Her laughter was too high-pitched, too forced. It echoed in my mind, tugging at threads of fear I couldn't yet face. I felt doubt twisting inside me, a serpent coiling tighter with each faltering beat of my heart. "A note from work," I repeated, trying to hide desperation creeping into my voice. "Why would you bring it home?" She laughed again, even shorter this time, but the tension was palpable, like a taut wire between us. "I don't know. Maybe I needed a reminder to laugh at something aside from our everyday chaos." The kitchen seemed colder suddenly, shadows lengthening like accusations. Her dismissiveness started to unravel the threads I'd held together, gently whispering everything isn't what it seems. I wanted to believe her, to push away uncertainty gnawing at my mind, find solace in her certainty. But standing there, this thing expanding between us, I couldn't let it slide. "Karen, don't brush it off," I said, my voice thick with the weight of unspoken questions, my fingers pressing into my arms, grounding me against the instability I felt. "We don't do this. Pretend everything's fine when you know." A flash of something hard, unfathomable, flickered in her eyes and was gone. The air grew heavy with unspoken forces shaping us from unseen depths. "We don't, but this isn't worth it. I'm telling you, it's just a joke." Her smile trembled, as if she realized she said too much. A coworker's prank. Another layer added to my confusion, an explanation that didn't settle the storm within. Her evasiveness, once small, now cast long shadows, distorting familiar contours of our life. Everything suddenly seemed fragile, poised on a knife's edge I couldn't quite perceive. I wanted her to reach back, to pull us from the cliff she inexplicably led us to. But as silence stretched and settled around us, I saw her holding that note like a talisman, one which offered a protection I couldn't rationalize. Something dark clouded her, an unseen bond pulling her away. And I stood there, surrounded by doubt, riddled with fear that maybe, this time, I was right to not trust the laughter that hung brittle in the room. The empty apartment seemed alive in its aching silence, every corner an echo of a life once shared. Karen's absence was a shadowy figure, lurking in each unlit room, watching me, accusingly. The air felt thick, oppressive with the weight of my own unspoken fears. I carried my doubts in my chest, a stone lodged where comfort once resided, cold and unyielding. I fell into the worn-out embrace of the couch, the upholstery sagging beneath the burden of nights like these. The clock on the shelf ticked steadily, mocking my pretense of normalcy. Each second carved into the stillness felt deliberate, a relentless procession of betrayal. Every ticking second of the vacant silence felt like a witness to my unraveling. I murmured to no one, the words bitter and raw on my tongue. The clock a metronome for impending heartbreak. Tonight, like so many others, she was out again. Art critique, Karen had called it, with a casualness that belied the sinking dread in my gut. Once upon a time, those words would have been a sweet lyre's song, inviting me into her world of galleries and lovers' whispers about brushstrokes and genius. Now they were thorns, snagging at the edges of my trust, pulling it apart thread by fragile thread. I reached for the glass of wine on the table, fingers closing around it with a familiarity that was starting to feel like a prison. I took a sip, hoping the dull heat would chase away the ghosts of suspicion. But spirals of doubt danced at the periphery of my mind, ethereal yet impossible to ignore. Are they really just critiques? I muttered, my voice a specter among the whispers of the night. The question hung in the air, unanswered and heavy. It was these evenings, these solitary symphonies, that played the tune of her late-night promises in my head. Each note a careful caution to hold faith, yet no tangible evidence to quiet the turmoil. I rose, suddenly unable to sit still amidst the restless ghosts of our world. I hovered through the apartment like a haunting, touching things to tether myself to reality. Her forgotten books splayed on the armchair, pages open to a world I couldn't follow. Her coat, hanging on the back of the kitchen chair, a testament to her physical presence, but no comfort against the shadows edging ever closer. I glanced out the window, searching the twinkling lights for an answer, for a sign that I was being foolish, paranoid. Night stretched endlessly, a vast expanse of possible truths and lies, both too terrifying to reckon with. The echoes of my own thoughts were deafening in the empty room, and as I stood there, aching for clarity, I realized I was no match for the shadows. They seeped into everything, shaping doubts, crafting fears, invisibly guiding my steps through the slow dance of suspicion and solitude. Tonight, once again, the shadows won. The world tilted on its axis, my breath stolen by the word professor. Each syllable a hammer blow to my already fractured spirit. I sat there, gripping my phone so hard it felt like it might shatter, the message burning into my eyes. Beads of sweat formed on my palms, leaving tiny damp fingerprints on the screen. I forced myself to read it again, trying to summon disbelief, a desperate wish that somehow my eyes had deceived me. But the words were as stark and treacherous as the first time. I just saw Karen with some older guy. Your professor, isn't it? My friend Tom had written. The confirmation was there, glaring back at me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut, robbed of air, thought, anything coherent. The bustling cafe around me faded into a distant hum, the clattering of cups and soft conversations drowned out by the rush of blood in my ears. I tried to focus, pinning my gaze on a spot, any spot, to regain my balance. My stomach churned, while rose bitterly at the back of my throat. I should respond to Tom, act like it's all fine, laugh it off as if he had merely caught Karen talking to a colleague. But my fingers wouldn't move. Instead, they betrayed me, trembling, quivering over the keyboard. I needed to know more, needed to understand how my world had just crumbled with so few words. With fingers barely cooperating, I managed to type back. Are you sure it was Professor Harlan? The wait for Tom's reply was an eternity. I could feel the smithereens of trust cutting into me, raw edges impossible to smooth over now. As the minutes crawled by, the anxiety brewed into something dense, suffocating. I was suspended in this space between, as if the certainty on either shore would be just as damning. Finally, Tom replied. Yeah, pretty sure. They were at the coffee shop. Seemed comfortable. Sorry, man. Comfortable. The word echoed like a mocking refrain. My mind raced back through the fleeting images of Karen's sheepish smiles, her late nights with a sudden abundance of work. Signs I had buried under mountains of excuses, now shifting to reveal the truth beneath. The past unfurling in seconds, each memory reigniting the flame of betrayal, searing and potent. The rawness of the revelation tore at my insides, my heart breaking open under the weight of every assumption and hope I'd clung to. A carousel of images and sounds swirled around me, a kaleidoscope of betrayal, mocking my blindness. Somewhere far away, someone called my name, snapping me back to the here and now, the wreckage I had no choice but to face. The pain was like a brand, marking me forever, and I had no idea what lay ahead. Confrontation? Denial? Anger? Every path seemed blocked by the pain and bitterness that had claimed me. I took a deep breath, steadying the tornado within, knowing I was standing at the precipice, the drop waiting with all its unknowns. The room felt smaller than I remembered. The smell of burnt coffee lingered like an old ghost, twisting my stomach into knots. Karen sat across from me, her eyes dancing nervously between the floor and the window, both of us suffocating in the heavy silence. It scraped against my skin like coarse sandpaper, each second stretching like a lifetime. The pictures were heavy in my hand, desperately waiting to betray the illusion we'd been clinging to. I couldn't look at them, but I felt their weight, the edges biting into my skin like jagged memories. It was time. I had to tear the whole sad story open. I threw the pictures between us like a wager in a cruel game. My voice trembled as I whispered, "Why?" The syllables barely held together, slipping past the wall of anger that threatened to choke me. Karen flinched. She didn't reach for them. Her hands stayed glued to her lap, fingers twitching like broken wings. The silence consumed us again, thick and poisonous. She opened her mouth, closed it, a tired marionette frozen mid-act. I wanted to scream, to shake the truth out of her. Instead, I stood there, waiting, clinging to the jagged edge of hope. Karen's voice finally broke through, barely a whisper. I didn't mean. Don't. I cut her off, my voice sharp as glass, a bitter edge carved through each word. Don't you dare try to minimize this. I wanted to look away, to shield myself from the pain in her eyes. But I needed to see. Needed her to know I was watching every terrified flicker. Her hands moved then, slow and reluctant, like they were weighed down by unspeakable guilt. The pictures curled in her grip, each crinkle echoing through the cramped space. As she looked down, a tear slipped past her defenses, tracing a silvery path down her cheek. I couldn't decipher whether it was a tear of regret or relief. I pushed, words tumbling out, raw and jagged. All I want is the truth, Karen. Why? Just why? The question lingered between us, as brutal and merciless as a guillotine's blade. Her gaze met mine finally, two stormy seas crashing without warning. Because it was real, and her voice broke, strangled by its own absurdity. I thought I could keep it separate. I was stupid. Each word felt like an admission pulling her further from the shores of who we used to be. A strangled laugh burst from me, sharp and bitter. My heart hammered relentlessly, each beat screaming betrayal. Stupid doesn't begin to cover it. I snapped, but my resolve was crumbling, the walls I'd built threatening to buckle under the weight of her confession. She looked at me, eyes pleading for something we both knew had already been lost. And there we were, two ghosts tangled in the aftermath of missteps and miscommunications, standing at the edge of obliteration. If only I could find my way through the debris of what once was. Her eyes were steady, unblinking, like the surface of a frozen pond. Words drifted from her mouth, detached, pricking the air with their sharp inevitability. I did it. I planned it all, she said, as if stating a simple fact, like the sky is blue, the earth is round. My heart beat in a muffled echo, the sound of a drum dampened and distant. I tried to latch onto anger, onto anything that might keep me afloat, but her stone-cold simplicity wrapped itself around me like a chilling fog. She stood there, her hands hanging limply at her sides, posture relaxed, not a hint of shame or regret to wedge into. I was alone against this new, frigid reality. You really did, I murmured, more to myself than to her, seeking some confirmation in the face of her emotional void. My voice sounded foreign to my ears, a hollow thing stripped of conviction. Her confession felt like standing in the shadow of an avalanche, resigned to the icy inevitability of being buried alive. Karen shrugged slightly, the movement barely rippling her surface calm. It was going to fall apart eventually. You know it. I just moved it along. Her words soldered onto the past tense, as if they'd happened in some dim, unreachable past where I no longer had a presence. I tasted metallic bitterness at the back of my throat. This was our life she was dissecting. Her gaze wandered past me to a spot somewhere distant, perhaps imagining a future untangled from the mess we had nurtured. The world grew quiet, save for the persistent tick of the wall clock, each second a reminder of the time I'd never reclaim. I wanted to scream at that clock to stop mocking me, but it just carried on, indifferent. So it's just like that? I asked, each syllable heavier than the last, a plea for something. Anything, to break the monotony of her tone. Her eyes flickered back to mine. They were cool, assessing, the warmth I'd once known frozen out. Just like that? She echoed, a mirror to my dwindling hope. And there we were, at the edge of a precipice I hadn't seen coming. The moments stretched, almost poetic in their horrifying simplicity. I wished for anger, for fire and brimstone, even blame. Yet, all I felt was the crushing weight of resignation. The space between us might as well have been an ocean, vast and unbridgeable. I half expected her to turn and walk away without another word, leaving behind only echoes and ghosts. But she lingered, though not out of guilt or love, just the finality, maybe. A chapter closed without fanfare, without the crescendo of a grand farewell. I realized then, as the silence thickened into something more concrete, that I had to move on, even if moving on meant learning to breathe through this void she had left in her wake. The room is heavy with leftover traces of what once was. Acrylics scattered over the faded rug, brushes congealing in murky water, canvases leaning lazily against the wall, memories drying in abstract swirls and cautious lines. Shadows from the open window stretch across the floor, whispering secrets I'd rather forget. In the muted chaos, I sit, absorbed in the echoes of choices I can't unsay. Colors, bright and bold, are caked under my fingernails. Only now they feel less like signs of creativity and more like stains of something lost. A silent storm brews behind my eyes, a mixture of regret and anger swirling faster than I can hold it down. All the love I poured out on these objects, hoping they would build a life worth living, now nothing more than relics of misplaced hope. I imagine reaching out, but my hands remain still, unwilling to disturb the fragile quiet. Facing them would mean facing the promises I broke, both to myself and to those who silently depended on me to choose the better path. The weight of it feels oppressive, like I'm rendered small and insignificant beneath its gaze. Oddly enough, amidst this overwhelming emptiness, clarity begins to bend through my mind, shaky but insistent. Each item in this room a testament to moments of trust, faith, and eventually, betrayal. Sitting here, I feel it all, a monument of choices stacked until they crumbled under their own weight. I close my eyes against the ache spreading in my chest, longing to find comfort in their darkness. In the silence, I hear nothing but my own breath, measured and steady. It's still your breath. I think to myself, still your life. The whisper, soft and introspective, begins to soothe the tempest within. When I open my eyes again, the faint light of dawn slips into the room, softening the sharp edges with strokes of warmth. My heartbeat feels less jagged, more like the ebb and flow of waves. A protective shield, allowing room for something new, something healing. I traded so much for love that never truly belonged to me. My freedom, my self-respect, that damn car that held the promise of escape or adventure. Gone. But the room, tired yet present, remains, whispering possibilities of what could be. The materials are still here, usable if I desire them to be so. Not everything is gone. My art, despite its pain-filled beginnings, is still something uniquely mine. I start to understand that within loss exists a hint of freedom. My fingers flex, stretching toward the bright splashes of forgotten colors, alive despite everything. It's not comfortable, this acknowledgement of regret, but it is honest. And honesty, maybe, is the beginning of some kind of healing. My chest aches with the possibility that there is more I can be, not despite this moment, but because of it. The path ahead is uncertain, but for the first time in forever, I am ready to take it, one step at a time.